Good evening, day, or whatever the fuck, ladies and gentlemen. Today I am very, very lucky to be joined by both Aram and Jello, who, Aram was the GM for the Tomb of Horrors campaign we ran, or he ran, the weekend before Halloween, and Jello was the lovable, rapscallion chat horse.
The most lovable.
So, yeah, thank you guys for joining me. This is what we're gonna do today is sort of walk back through the Tomb of Horrors, our experience, favorite moments, dreaded events, I guess. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend going back, and you care about spoilers for a fucking competitive Tomb of Horrors run. If you care about that at all, please go back and check out the two streams. They're recorded and uploaded on two different channels, Twitch TV/MajinZelfer for Team A, and Twitch TV /Warped Lamp for Team B. And even if you aren't, I highly suggest subscribing to at least Warped Lamp for more TTRPG stuff.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you guys for like doing this. Aram in particular, Tomb of Horrors is like something I've wanted to do for friggin' years, and now I finally had the chance.
No,
Wasn't what I expected.
I was just thrilled because it's something I've tried to do in the past. But this is the first time I had ever suggested it to a group of people and had anyone like already know what it was and be like, "Yeah, man, I wanted to do that." So it worked out really well.
Like, going into it, I expected the Cat Mario or whatever of TTRPGs. It was, wasn't quite that. But I thought you did a phenomenal job GMing it and setting it up, and...
Oh, thank you. It was actually my first time running a module out of a book. I have only ever run my own stuff before. So it was a new experience for me in a couple of respects, and one very important one is that I didn't care at all when you guys, like, bagged on the dungeon design or totally bypassed it with hilarious bullshit, because I was just like, oh, no skin off my nose.
So, yeah, the first thing we encounter when we walk into this dungeon that I think really set the tone for it was, the door is hidden behind this giant pile of rocks, and like this became a theme. Apparently doors A through C were all hidden behind these huge piles of rocks.
Yep.
We all wandered in incredibly cautiously, like afraid that, well, the roof did kind of collapse, but afraid that some sort of laser trap would be deployed, killing us all instantly. The moment, once again, if we're building off of the Cat Mario comparison, the moment where you jump up and hit an invisible block and it kills you instantly wasn't there. It was like, and this set the tone for the entire thing. We pop open the first door with the utmost care, and it's just a blank frickin' wall.
Yep.
Yeah, I think a lot of players, myself included, went in thinking it would be like, I want to be the guy dungeon of only nonsense insta-kills, and you had to puzzle your way past them. But in terms of video game design, it was a lot closer to, like, an old-school super boss dungeon that, like, a lot of regular players would have a really frustrating time with, but because of how we played it, it was more like a player who started the entire game with the express purpose of beating that dungeon very easily, and, like, kind of whizzing through a lot of parts of it that would have been just detrimental for a one-life actual I've played this for years character.
Yeah. I will say, I probably, like, oversold it in the regards of, like, man, this is the most bullshit kill you for stupid ways dungeon ever, because until I said, yeah, let's run this, and I read the PDF for the first time, I had never seen it either. And frankly, the dungeon looks more lethal on paper than it proves in practice, because you look at it and you're like, God, there's so many pits and all this random shit. But then when you get into it, like, you realize, like, if you have a team of people who are willing to just be like, yeah, I'm gonna bring a 50 charge wand of cure light wounds, I'm gonna be that guy. Any trap that doesn't kill you instantly, you can pretty much fully recover from. So
which now is like all of them but 2 or 3.
Yeah, which ends up being most of them in that case, which again probably comes down to the fact that you guys were making characters for the express purpose of doing this dungeon, as opposed to coming in with, like, we have 1 cleric's worth of heals and then we're done.
Yeah, I think an important note, in case people have actually not seen either of the streams and are just watching this anyway, we did not do this as just you go in and have one life. Aram set custom rules for us, which is basically we had load and save states that you could enact at any time, and whichever team used less load and save states, making new save states being worth a little more detriment points than loading state, or no, the reverse. Loading state was worse than making a new save state. Whoever did less of that was the winner.
Yeah,
for most of the points, I think.
Yeah, by and large, yeah. It was because I honestly thought it would be more necessary. Yeah, no, like, when you get right down to it, the pits do a pretty good amount of damage, but not enough to kill a 9th level character in one hit in most cases. And some of the traps actually do bafflingly little damage, like the 1d8 damage arrows.
Yeah.
But then you do have stuff like the gargoyle with 150 hit points, 4 attacks per round that was putting out like 60 damage with a full attack. Like, the difficulty in this dungeon is really uneven.
Yeah. Also, like, it has this weird habit of, like, if the trap didn't work the first time, better repeat it 9 more times. That'll totally get them.
They'll never expect the 18th pit.
The pit hallway was like, that was probably the moment where I'm like, oh, I guess it's just pits all the way down. I was expecting more of like the green gargoyle head, I guess, which I love that thing.
I think that kind of stuff is the most fun stuff in the dungeon. I'm sorry to say, there is a much higher concentration of stuff like that right at the end of the dungeon. And because we're on limited time, not all of that got a chance to be seen, unfortunately.
Just breaking down the first hallway, like, I'm just gonna look at the map of the dungeon for this.
Yep.
Just looking at the first hallway, the riddle of Mr. Aziz that lined this was the biggest trap in it.
To be honest, yeah.
Yeah, I'll agree to that.
I do kind of like the hidden switch within the box. That was a nice touch, because you traditionally expect to find something, a secret door or something behind that, but no, it's just more fuck you.
Yep. There's a trap on the box, and you're like, aha, I disabled the trap, and there's a switch inside the box. I press it. Sorry, that just activates another trap. This box is worthless.
Oh, I thought it was the same trap, like, in case you disabled it for the box. It's just like, haha, thought you got the box, eh? No!
Mr. Aziz is super petty.
I kind of enjoy, like, there's a lot of parts of this dungeon, design-wise, that I think are neat in that they specifically are designed to mess with player expectations. So the first path has this long, winding red pattern of tiles. And at first you think, well, either I have to follow this or I don't. And one either, like, avoids pits or is full of pits. And if you walk on it for a ways, I think the first pit is on the red tile.
Yeah, the first two are on it.
So after that, you might think, I should avoid it. But then after that, it's just anyone's game. Like, it means literally nothing, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
And, like, even the exit, like, we did this, Team A. You get to the first one, it's like, well, there's a lot more map. There might be another door. Sure enough, there is. And then after that, you might just go in one of the doors or try them one by one and go as far as you can, in which case the second door is the correct one. Or you would be like Team A, and I would have done this had I not been a horse, which is go even further and find the third door, which is just another nothing doorway. It's just like, you want to explore? Punished! Penalty!
Yeah. I do appreciate the red path specifically leading you all the way to the end to 2 nothings, where, like, the actual way you go is a little bit in the middle, but you sort of get used to that eventually.
So here's something to clarify. The mist door at the end of the first hallway actually can lead you forward. If you just go straight through, it teleports you to the tiny prison room with the switches. But if you press the stones around the arch in the right order, then the mist clears, and if you walk through, you get teleported to the second gargoyle. So you basically get to skip the part of the dungeon that we lovingly termed the fuck you hallway.
I would say the fuck you hallway is the worst designed thing in here. Because it is very easy to deal with. and also not fun to deal with. And not even in like a haha, this is difficult. It like really is just flat out boring.
Okay, so there are some aspects to this dungeon that I think makes sense if you're looking at it from the perspective of, let's say you were an ancient evil wizard and also kind of a dick, and you wanted to lure adventurers to your tomb just to mess with them and ultimately kill them. Then, sure, you'd build in lots of stuff that's directly counterintuitive, like the fact that, as I mentioned, the first miss door has this little trick to it that lets you get through and actually have it progress you. The second two don't. They pretend to have the same gimmick, but are always bad. And so, like, stuff like that is... Like maybe it makes sense in universe if you're considering how you would actually design an evil dungeon, but wow, is that some really, really awful game design if you're trying to design like a dungeon that is interesting and can be, like, and challenges your players to solve the riddle. Like, this is, oh, did you solve the riddle? Congratulations. Attempting to apply any kind of pattern or logic to this will only screw you over.
I don't know. The traps sort of boil down into two categories for me here, and I really like one of the categories, and I'm sort of on the other. There are the traps that you need to go through to progress that are just hurdles. Like, they hit you, they deal some damage, or they inconvenience you. The fuck room or the fuck hallway, whatever it was, is absolutely that. The pits are another, or the later pits are another. What I liked here were the traps that were like, ooh, do I mess with it or not? And you're playing on the adventurer's sense of curiosity. I love the miss gates. Love them to death.
I actually am really into the last trap that Team A got to before Foss just decided to teleport cheat through like a third of the remaining dungeon, which is over in like the red hallway that secretly has a bulldozer in it, and also puts you to sleep, which awful. Because it's a different colored hallway. And also, around this point, this is just Aram doing this. Aram switched the music to Deep Dungeon. So we're like, oh, we're getting somewhere. And at least this is what I thought, which is why Chad Horse was so willing to fall asleep several times in this hallway. Was sprint down this red hallway, upon which we opened a door, surprise, a bulldozer, and we just really wanted to get as far as we could, so keep going down that hallway, and then there's just nothing back there. There's like several more rooms that the bulldozer can go through, but there's nothing else. Like, there's not even a treasure, right? That's just nothing.
It's basically just a storage shed for said bulldozer.
Cool. I can't imagine how annoying this dungeon would be without any kind of cheating secret door type thing.
Oh, extremely. I'm so glad that both parties had ways to just automatically find secret doors, because the absolute worst outcome for either of your teams in terms of like how fun it would be for you and for me and for the viewers would be if you had like explored all of the map that you could see and you were just like, well, I guess we missed a secret door somewhere. It could be literally anywhere. Let's walk along making perception checks for an hour to try to find it.
Yeah.
There are many points in this dungeon where the only way to progress is to find a secret door.
As a GM, I'd probably just, like, a group that gets to that point, you just let them roll en masse. Like, give me a path that you guys are going to take and roll a whole bunch for me, is what I'd say. It's shitty, but my god, the alternative is so much worse.
Yeah, but you're making it easier on your players then, when clearly the design intent of this dungeon is to be as obtuse as possible, given that there's literally a fake final boss that tricks you into thinking you finished the dungeon so you don't see the latter half of it.
That is actually an awesome trap.
I love that. That's so
I would say
good.
that is the best part of this dungeon in terms of like the design that I think is still both funniest and most effective. It's so good because it's like, it's in this tiny room. Of course that was fake. How could we think that's real? Final boss is in a tinier room.
Yep. I agree. It's really clever. It's a really cool idea. My thing though is that it definitely speaks to the idea that you run this dungeon so you can like laugh at your players, and that like the point is, you know, the kind of person who would design the dungeon and put that in is not someone who wants to make sure the players see the whole dungeon because they worked really hard on it and it'll be cooler that way. It's the kind of person who would love to like hold it over their players' heads that they didn't find the real thing. And I think it really, like, once you understand that, it makes total sense that there's all these points in the dungeon where you're just stuck forever if you don't find a secret door.
It is fun to finally play a dungeon, specifically with that ending, where I can be a player and the douchebag that got tricked in the end. Because I'm used to playing a GM, and it's like, as a GM, your job is to sort of be the jackass who's like, oh man, I got beaten by the players in this incredibly stupid way. Being able to do that as a player is kind of refreshing to me. I don't always want to be the hero. Being a total tool is rad sometimes.
I enjoy the areas that, you know, I lied. Maybe my favorite thing in this dungeon is the stone crushing gargoyle. That is hysterical.
Oh man.
Like the point there, you get like, what is it, 9 gems from this necklace from a gargoyle that you beat, and you get its spoils, which is a necklace with gems inlaid in it. And there's another gargoyle with 3 arms outstretched and 1 broken arm, and you can put the gems in little slots in its hands, and it will crush them into worthless dust. And if you do that 3 times, like a person like trying to speedrun via glitches through a dungeon, then a invisible gem is hinted at appearing in its 4th hand.
Oh, goodness.
Had like Team B found that, I think we would have just like officially come into the call and surrendered right there for them being able to find that shit.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna also echo, with regards to like the up and down qualities of this dungeon, I'm gonna echo something that I think Jay and or Jello expressed while they were playing, which is this dungeon would be a lot more fun if more of it was like rooms with lots of features, like the chapel and the lab and the agitated chamber, and less long meandering hallways full of pits and secret doors.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Whenever there's something on the map to touch and interact with, like, the altar wasn't that interesting, but it's still cooler than, you know, the room with the orbs in it, where it's like, oh, you need to touch the orbs and get a will save above a certain thing, blah, blah, blah. Like, just having a large glowing altar that's like, don't touch this, makes you really want to touch it. Yeah. That's real entertaining to me. If it was a string of rooms like that, I'd be so happy. Once again, shout out to the Mist Door. I love you.
Well, the 3rd Mist Door is a gem, and I love that it's in the dungeon. I hate that they punish you for trying to apply a sane person's logic to the dungeon design.
I'm actually a little bummed because the 3rd Mist Door is
that's the alignment and gender swap door.
So like the problem is for me, I would never have like found the little warp tube between the first thing and the gargoyle.
Yeah,
so I never like
here.
I immediately assumed this is the worst possible option. And then when you get to the 3rd one, which is the fun one, and it has like a skeleton pointing to it, like, all right, Aziz, I'm wise enough to your games that I'm never going near that. like I, out of all the traps and everything in the dungeon, and like, Team A was done by the fuck you hallway. At that point, we're just eye rolling at everything we saw. Except the goddamn acid drapes. Fuck those. That like by the time we got to that, it was like, yeah, no, even Faust isn't like, dumb's the wrong word. It isn't like gonna be like, yeah, no, even my like suicide character wouldn't run into that. Yeah, no. Also, fuck the acid drapes, but on top of that, one of my favorite parts of playing this is, even with illustrations, I had a really hard time visualizing a lot of parts of this dungeon. Like, my favorite misvisual was actually in the fuck you hallway, and I mentioned this in the game, because you kept saying the doors were rising up, and like what I think that means is they were like slabs or something, like into the ceiling.
Yep.
But what I was imagining at first was the entire frame of the door cartoonishly like
Going
bounced a little bit and squatted before jumping into the ceiling and just disappearing. And like that's the level I was imagining, and it took me a long time to wrap my head around the acid drape description.
I think our team's pretty lucky, and like I was fortunate to pick a summoner because I'm the type of player where I want to, if the GM took time to put it in, I want to find out what it does. So like if I was playing a barbarian, I would be jumping through every last missed door. Like it's hard for me to see a thing and be like, oh man, it's probably something either fun or funny, I probably shouldn't, and then not.
Yeah.
So having disposable life forms was really useful.
Yeah, if you really want to like force your players to actually interact with shit in this dungeon, I would immediately rule out anything that can summon anything, because like having to actually dip your own toe, and like that one really nice piece of artwork that has like 9 regular only 1 life adventurers going in and chronicling how I think 7 of them die and 2 completely fail to make it through the dungeon. 1 is trapped forever, the other just leaves with 1 arm. And that there's like halfway through that dungeon, because a bunch of them have died, the descriptors just become like, we send 50 barbarians down this hallway, they all die. And it literally does that until, and I'm gonna guess the GM did this, the barbarians revolt and kill one of the players.
Kill several PCs, yeah. Oh man. I think they got them as far as the bulldozer, and it crushed like 30 of them, so the remaining 100 or so immediately turned on the party.
Oh, that's so good. Boss did bring up the point that this is balanced around first edition and not Pathfinder's expanded rule set of like, oh, I can summon how many hit dice of whatever per turn.
Yeah.
You said that Civ's character could potentially summon 24 hit dice of skeletons as well?
22 per casting of Animate Dead.
That's real good too.
Yeah. Which she didn't abuse the way that you did through sheer quantity, but because that number was so ludicrously high, I decided to just let her pull out 1 or 2 pretty much whenever she wanted, which she was very restrained with, actually.
Yeah. No, it was really good because, man, flooding the area with critters is strong.
Yeah. I think I've mentioned this. If I do my own takeoff on this dungeon for next year's Halloween, if it's Pathfinder, and I know at least one person has said, like, man, Pathfinder's terrible, you should use a better system like you are or something. Maybe I'll do that.
Jello sweats.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that. If it's Pathfinder again, I think that if I just posed the same challenge to people, but it was just a dungeon that I wrote instead of a legendary famous module, people would be way more restrained and make like reasonable characters for the most part.
Oh yeah.
But even if people didn't feel like doing that, I feel like you could reclaim 90% of the element of danger by only banning anything that summons and any consumable magic items, so no wands, potions, scrolls, etc., so that the wand of cure light wounds is not present, the wand of detect secret doors is not present, etc. I think that really clears out about 90% of the easy mode, just like face roll everything options.
But I'd also ban, like, teleportation magic, because that shit is also super busted.
Maybe so. I feel that's a little easier to work around, because most teleportation magic, you have to be able to see where you're going, or have already seen where you're going. I think with a few strategic nips and tucks, you can make the dungeon way less cheesable. And I would probably choose to do that if I was going to run one of my own, because I'd rather do that up front than get bent out of shape when players play, like, min-maxy and ignore all my shit.
Yeah, if you had posed this to me as like, oh, I designed this dungeon, I would not have put together the character that I did.
Yeah.
And, like, even doing it, like, playing a min-maxy bullshit character, at a certain point, you realize it wouldn't be very fun to just roll the dungeon.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta have some restraint. The point isn't to, like, conquer this place, really. The point is to have a good time, like it always is for TTRPGs.
Yeah.
So, min-max only gets you so far. I thought min-max would be necessary to clear it. Turns out min-max isn't. It's necessary for overcoming a lot of frustrations, but that's it.
Yeah, like, honestly, a min-maxed single character, and by that I mean a summoner, could do this dungeon on their own. Except maybe
probably.
for a boss, but even then...
I think if Jay was really using the abilities of his summoned creatures to their absolute fullest, he might be able to solo even the combats. On the other hand, was that the better than Babao was your strongest summon, right?
It was in terms of utility. In terms of damage, Marcus Jr. is still, like,
so
king there.
I feel like if your character were by himself, he might still struggle against fake Mr. Aziz and real Mr. Aziz, but certainly every other combat encounter in the dungeon would be trivial.
Yeah, fake Mr. Aziz would have probably destroyed me. Do you get to keep the mace if you beat that guy?
I guess, yeah. But the mace is only super effective against fake Mr. Aziz. It's
only super effective against the fake? That's hilarious.
Like, isn't there even,
I
like, not
love that.
even, like, a corporeal Aziz? Isn't it like a fake fuck you skull and a ghost?
pretty much. It's basically a super deadly trap and a monster that can't attack you unless you attack it first. So that the real final boss is more of a like psychological battle against the players to trick them into doing the wrong thing than a straight combat encounter. So yeah, it's kind of weird that way. I guess that's not what Gygax was looking for out of the final encounter, but frankly, I don't see a good reason for not having like a real, like, if just what is the fake Mr. Aziz was the real Mr. Aziz, I think the last room would be a lot more fun, to be honest.
Are you saying that 4x2 tile with nothing in it isn't fun? I guess there's treasure secretly.
Yeah.
So yeah, would you recommend the Tomb of Mr. Aziz to, anyone?
Maybe under really specific circumstances. I think it might be fun for, like, one night if you had real characters, maybe at, like, level 11, who weren't built to break a dungeon, and then, like, their deaths didn't matter outside of this alternate universe where they go into the Tomb of Horrors. Other than that, no. I think it would be more fun to make your own fuck you dungeon, but that's just the kind of person I am.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with Jello. I think there are very specific circumstances under which this dungeon can be entertaining. It violates so many basic rules of, like, what we now consider good game design that, like, you really have to have a good reason, to design something this, like, obtuse, persistently annoying, like, it has many qualities that are like, well, I guess I pretty much already said it. Like, basically, if you're trying to design a dungeon for the purpose of, like, this'll be a fun experience, this is not how I'd design a dungeon in many ways. That being said, I don't think that was the reason it was designed, so I can't criticize it too much for that. It's not even just that game design sensibilities have changed and advanced in the past 40 years. It's just, like, this was straight up not designed for the purposes of giving the players a fun time. It was more or less designed to be a punitive experience. I would not recommend playing this unless you do something like what Jello described of let people use existing characters, but for the love of God, don't hold their death in this dungeon against them. Or if you do something like we did where you're just making throwaway characters to begin with.
Right.
If I knew anything about, like, wine or cheese, it's like a fine, like, you have to sip it and give it the right nose and, like,
I don't even think it's like that. I think it's like a special kind of cheese, much like a century egg that's just, like, ruined but interesting. Like if you were a connoisseur, it would be a good thing to brag about that you ate the Aziz cheese, as it were. But other than that, I would not consume the Aziz
cheese
cheese
of Aziz.
Yeah, that is definitely the promotional t-shirt I'm taking away from this.
Yeah, if anyone ever runs this dungeon, please include as a treasure the cheese of Aziz, which, again, if you didn't watch the stream, is what we decided to name the crappy wizard who made this dungeon.
A Sararak.
Aziz is a way better name.
Yeah, it seriously is. I had a really good time in the dungeon. I think you were right in saying that you need only under certain circumstances will this place be fun. I think we hit on one of them, and I was really glad to do it. I think your mode would work perfectly fine as well. This is a perfect dungeon if you're like, I don't know, you want to run something one night and you don't want the GM to like, or that you're the GM and you don't want to prep something of your own that's particularly super intricate, because this place is really fun to not only go through, with disposable characters, it's fun to rag on, too.
This is a good dungeon to riff on, like watching an MST or something.
Like riffing on a fine cheese.
Oh, what's gonna happen when I walk through this door? Oh, am I gonna get a 1d8 damage arrow in the shoulder? Who could have fucking guessed?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, and it's rare to find a dungeon that you can just dump on in-game, and it's not personal in any way. So, yeah, we did find a way to actually kind of enjoy the tomb, or, in my mind, do that with this sort of competition method, which is something I've never seen before in a TTRPG, but was a blast to play. Team A was pit up against Team B, and our goal was basically to make it as far as possible. It was a real fun time. How do you guys think that worked?
I think it worked pretty well. I do think I still do think this, that most of the like fungineering crew who's like like on paper generally better at like actually plowing through hardcore tabletop-y stuff was on Team B. So it was interesting to be chat horse on Team A. I'm also really glad I was on Team A, though, because I have said this before. I think Team B's stream, way more entertaining. I don't think anyone else on Team A will disagree with that. Because we were pretty much cracking up at all the characters immediately. Man, Team A had a weird experience going into that dungeon, because we were getting, like, there was a joke as like 3 deaths so far, all of them the stream's deaths, because we could not keep a stream up.
That's real hard, and like, that was just bad
3
luck.
stream deaths and 17 Rube internet deaths.
Momentum's so important when it comes to like keeping things fun and fluffy, that like, technical difficulties at the start are like, I don't know, somebody running up and kicking you as hard as they can in your fucking shin. Like, it's bad. But like, I don't know, I watched Team A after the fact, and I thought you guys did a very good job. Like, especially at the beginning. It just hurts in moment, because you're like, oh god, the stream's down again, or in this case, oh, there goes Rube.
This was I don't actually think I've ever been involved in a stream. I guess I've been in some of yours where the chat has some participation, but this is the far and away most chat participation in a stream I've ever been involved with. Managing that was interesting. This is a real fun dungeon for chat participation, because there is a lot of like stuff to try in a lot of the areas, which is neat. So that was a fun extra thing that Team A had.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I have to thank you for that, Jello, because you're the one who came up with the idea of Twitch Plays Tomb of Horrors.
You're the one who didn't want to play Pathfinder.
It's true. I wasn't gonna say it.
No, you can say it. I don't like actually putting time and effort into making characters. 9 levels. Whew, I could barely do 2 or 3. Yeah, no, I think the competition was fun. This was a really fun dungeon, especially in the first hour. It is a bummer we didn't record any of this, because Team A was bouncing off the walls while everyone was in the first red tile dungeon on Team B, not dying for hours, and we just wanted anything to kill them. Like, anything bad, we cheered. It was a fun time. We got real mean, too. Like, part of it was a joke, but most of it wasn't.
that's part of the freaking fun though. Like going into this, I was shit talking like crazy, like fuck you Team A, etc., etc. You guys are so dead. Well, I guess you guys were in on the joke too, but I was fully aware of the fact that I'm running Ballast McGee through this dungeon. Like, I wanted to make it sound like I was putting, like, my ultimate Herculean character out there. But no, true garbage. Like, you guys are a fun group of people to finger quotes compete with. It was a good time.
Yeah, I'm really happy we had a good group of people to do this, because I think even one person taking this totally seriously would have ruined the entire thing.
Oh yeah.
Actually, yeah. I have something to add here. I was really worried about Team A for that reason. Just because I knew there's like a maximum level of taking it seriously you're ever going to get out of like you, Jello, Civ, Rube, and Faust. I didn't know what to expect because I hadn't GM'd for him before, but he turned in a character with no items, so I was like, and I was really worried because I've seen Majin get frustrated by people like not being willing to do his thing for long periods of time. I was really worried that there was going to be a total imbalance of people taking it seriously, and that I was mostly worried about Majin, but I guess this could have happened on Team B as well. Basically, that one or two people would be like, guys, we gotta do this, we gotta beat the other team, and everyone else would be like, I pull the lever, oops, I died, and the first person would be like, So
I think that was naturally balanced because the dungeon itself was like a third enemy to get mad at. So Majin and Will, I think, got the most sincerely mad at the game itself, and both of those were at the dungeon. Majin's moment being maybe my favorite in the game besides Chat Horse Death A, which was Gargoyle crushes the gems. Is that it? Like the other thing is everyone on both teams was very on board with not being the first asshole that died, except Chat Horse and Lamp, and everyone on Team B managed to reel in Lamp just enough so that he never did that, much to Team A's total loud annoyance.
I was a little surprised how casually we took it on Team B, because before I'm like, yeah, we gotta play fast and eat ass, and then we got into the dungeon and it's like, why not? Like, we're taking it nice and easy. We had lots of moments to sit back and RP, and man, it was fun. Like, Team B was a particularly pleasant group of people to play with. I gotta throw shout-outs to my team, I guess.
Shout-outs to Team Deep Voice.
Yeah, Team Deep Voice was very, very pleasant to play with. And even Will getting pissed off at the dungeon was in character, which I don't know, I always appreciate that. It doesn't feel like he broke into the meta to be like, this place sucks. It's like, alright, that's it.
I'm done! I'm fucking done! Shut it down!
I'll just put my head in the devil head. I'm going for it.
It's frozen!
No, I'm really glad we did this as a competition, actually, because, like, it added a little bit of extra tension that I think the tomb kind of needs.
Yeah.
But not enough to make us crazy. It was enough to spur us on, so we kept going into all the traps and didn't take forever, like, oh, I searched this wall for a secret door. None of that.
Yeah, no, having a time limit makes it a very different experience, which was good.
And I don't think anyone leaned into the time limit too hard. Like, we just gotta clear as many rooms as possible, guys. Go, 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 go.
We
like,
sure
maybe
did
the,
at the end.
the last like 15 minutes of Team A, maybe, but
we shattered our perfect record and all hell broke loose.
Yep. No, it worked out really well. It worked out like. And not really because of any action on my part. Like, it very easily could have, like, if the time limit felt too harsh, or there was, like, a weird mismatch in how competitive different people were feeling, this could have been a really bitter experience for one or more players if they felt like their team was letting them down and not trying, or, like, one team was super chill and the other team was super competitive, and so they just, like, looked like the bad guys. which a little bit like, you could say that, but like, everyone was on board with Team A being like, yes, fail. So it never, it never got like to the point of actual bad feeling, and that's just on having a really solid group of players.
Oh yeah, I would never play this dungeon with anyone who gets sour ever. Like, at a regular level, everyone gets mad playing tabletops if the dice hate them. But holy shit, this would be a miserable dungeon to be sad through. If you do watch any part of both streams, I would recommend the parts of stream A you should watch are maybe the very beginning with the first hallway, Chat Horse's first death, Majin freaking out with the gargoyle, and then I think Faust dying in the agitated room, and everything past that, which is about 20 minutes, I think.
Yeah, the last 20 or so minutes of actual playtime of Team A.
And for Team B?
To be honest, I would watch all of Team B, because you guys were just so you were fun even when you weren't doing stuff, just because you guys were playing off each other really well. Let's see, highlights of Team B. I'd say your slowest patch is near the beginning. You guys were very cautious, actually more cautious than Team A. Like, you guys spent about 25 minutes at the start of the tunnel trying to figure out what to do with the box and, like, poking it with a pole and doing shit like that.
Keen's pole!
Yeah, Keen's pole.
Oh, man.
I'd say maybe, so I definitely watched the opening RP. Maybe skip ahead, like, half an hour or so that you're more into the dungeon. And then... I don't know, like, Jeremy going through the Mist Arch and losing all his gear and sulking and having a tantrum is pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
And then really, like, when you guys just... Oh, and going through the Mist Arch as well, the second one. And then when you guys just start to... When you take off your training weights and Jay's summoner starts summoning 80,000 mobs to tank everything, and you start blazing through the dungeon... is when it gets really fun also. And then the highlight for me is the battle against the fake Mr. Aziz.
Oh, yeah. I was really happy with that conclusion, and, like, I'm the type of player where a fake ending is probably my favorite thing, because it's so fucking funny. Like, I'm with Jello, or unless you changed your opinion, but that is my favorite part of the dungeon. Like, that fake end. So I'm really glad Team B got that. I'm really glad that my shitty character got to shittily self-sacrifice himself on a fake phylactery.
Yep.
And then, like, I'm just gonna dimension door out of here, girl. And then that was the last they thought they ever saw of him. That, I couldn't have asked for a better ending. That was beautiful. Do you guys want to say who your favorite character was? Is that, like, too personal?
Han Judgment.
I'd probably say either Han Judgment or Jeremy Goodfriend.
I'm on Team Jeremy Goodfriend, yeah, so,
Jeremy Goodfriend was good, and Han Judgment loses points for being inspired and named after a character that Keen did not create. But I think I have seen Will go through the beats of Will getting frustrated too many times for Jeremy Goodfriend's
it loses
full
certain
effect.
novelty value, I suppose. And Keen does have some outstanding lines, as he always does.
Yeah, that's like, he gets
You scaredy cats would make terrible pickle hunters.
Yeah, the immediate... I'm pretty sure Keen was the second person that walked into the bar at the beginning.
Yeah,
so
he was.
set the tone, I think, for the rest of the bar, which was, oh, everyone is friendly and nothing is wrong, which was perfect. And then I think Keen's style of sudden spikes of great humor is best in a dungeon like this with the game we were playing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fair. I was a fan of Jeremy because he acted as a pseudo heart of the party. Like, every character, barring Ballast McGee, because he's a fucking jackass, sort of had something going on with Jeremy Goodfriend, including, like, Matt's character actually having a line where Jeremy's, like, trying to end it, hand on shoulder, like, you're my good friend.
Jeremy,
That's the
you're
last
my
thing I
good
expected.
friend. Especially after only like 2 hours earlier, Jeremy had called him Fredge, and he was like, actually, only my friends can call me Fredge. You're not my friend.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. Well, with that, I think we're ready to end part A of this retrospective. We're gonna grab some other people and talk about the teams in more detail and get the experiences of some members of Team A and B. Thank you, Jello and Aram, for joining me for this part where we shed on the dungeon.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Chat horse, agree.